More than 1,100 dead after Hamas attacks and Israel's retaliation. Entire villages razed as death toll soars from quakes in Afghanistan. Russia escalates nuclear rhetoric to influence Ukraine's support. These were the headlines I saw in just 5 minutes of reading the news 2 weeks ago. These stories have only gotten worse since then. How often do you read the news? Daily? Weekly? Monthly? Never? If you are reading the news, how are you accessing it? Traditional media? Paper newspapers, television, radio? Or do you maybe look at online news sites? Or social media? According to Reuters, 68% of people surveyed in the UK are passive consumers of the news. This means that, in an average week, they don't actively or reactively participate in anything to do with the news. They simply ignore it. The same report revealed that, in the UK, only 1/3 of people trust the news. This feels shockingly low for a country ranked highly in the World Press Freedom Index, though it might have something to do with the fact that almost half of people who do consume news do so on social media. And finally, the Reuters report found out that, in the UK, half of people were avoiding the news, sometimes or often. For young people like me, these figures are even higher. I find this really concerning, but I can see why we are avoiding the news, as we are highly likely to come across the kind of headlines I opened this talk with. These headlines are just the tip of the iceberg. We live in very serious times, with multiple ongoing conflicts, massive economic uncertainty, and the climate crisis, to name just a few topics which dominate the news. So, what should our response be? Avoid? Or engage? I believe that engaging is the right path forward, and I think that Modern United Nations could be the solution we are looking for. Modern United Nations, or MUN, is an academic simulation of the proceedings of the real United Nations. As a participant, you play the role of a delegate to the UN. This entails debating a wide range of issues from the perspective of the country you are representing, which will almost always be different to the country you are from. MUN has helped me in many ways. For starters, I doubt I'd have the confidence to give this talk without the practice MUN has given me in public speaking. MUN has sharpened my debating skills. It has taught me both advocacy and empathy, as you are forced to consider issues from a variety of viewpoints. I've gotten better at conducting research. It takes resourcefulness and creativity to find out anything about the foreign policy of countries that the average person might not be able to identify on a map. Something that has particularly stuck with me was learning that South Africa had a successful nuclear program in the 1980s. 6 warheads and a 7th under construction. But they decided to dismantle all of these. I was proud to learn that my country is the only nation in history to voluntarily relinquish nuclear power. But, on digging a little deeper, I discovered that one of the reasons the government did this was to prevent these weapons falling into the hands of the post-apartheid government, a government which would be run by black people. While I still respect the outcome, I am deeply troubled by the reasons for it. Without MUN, I would never have known this. Aside from these raw skills, MUN has changed the way I interact with other people. I am growing to understand diplomacy, how to find common ground, when to compromise, and when to stand firm. I've gained experience in negotiation. I've learned how to communicate effectively, when to inject humour, and when to show its steely resolve. Through MUN, I've learned about the levers of power that are used to shape the events covered in the news, and how governments have the very real potential to drive positive change, should they choose to look past their differences. I've also learned that there aren't universally held values. I can clearly remember my first conference in 2019, where I was representing a country on the Human Rights Council. On the Human Rights Council, one would expect to be promoting human rights, working to uphold gender equality and to entrench the rights of refugees, for example. But I was representing a country whose human rights record is less than spotless. So I passed an amendment, my very first amendment, in support of torture. Being forced to address issues from viewpoints that are entirely contradictory to your own is par for the course of the MUN experience. In MUN, I have wielded these levers of power to occasionally start wars, but more often to end them. I have addressed natural disasters, worked to resolve refugee crises, and many times taken action to stop climate change. We are not bound by the constraints of reality, so we can provide limitless humanitarian aid, deliver boundless support for refugees fleeing war zones, and pursue a comprehensive net zero carbon agenda free of budgetary considerations. But I've also participated in many debates which have ended in declarations of nuclear war. You win some, you lose some. I think that one of the most valuable things I've gained from MUN is the ability to examine my outlook on the world by being forced to see it from another country's perspective. For me, representing South Africa a number of times has been a particularly powerful experience, as it has helped me to better understand the political dynamics of the country my mother grew up in. I began this talk by discussing how few young people properly engage with the news. I think that MUN can act as a means for us to stay up to date with and make sense of current affairs in a way that feels fun, not overwhelming. We are the next generation of UN diplomats, activists, world leaders. I believe that MUN has the power to inspire us all to bring about positive change. MUN can give us the tools we need to communicate more effectively, to stand up for our beliefs, and to help us get to a future where the people in charge have a greater level of understanding of each other. Thank you.